Good morning, everyone. It gives me immense pleasure to extend a heartfelt welcome to each one of you to our third HBNI monthly alumni webinar titled From PhD to Independent Faculty by Dr. Lalit Sehgal. I first thank our esteemed alumni speaker, Dr. Lalit Sehgal, Assistant Professor, Ohio State University, Division of Hematology, who has agreed to give talk for our students. I welcome our respected Dean, Professor A.K. Tyagi, and Associate and Assistant Deans of HBNI, and students and faculties who are online and offline, and alumni participants in the webinar. This webinar series is designed to help the present students of HBNI in their placement and to connect with our alumni of HBNI. Thank you all for being a part of today's webinar. First I will give a brief introduction. Dr. Lalit Sehgal, currently Assistant Professor at Ohio State University Division of Hematology, where he has his independent lab focusing on developing novel therapies for NHL. He completed his PhD at Cancer Research Institute in Mumbai, India, and postdoctoral work with Philips Semenigo and Michael Wang in the Department of Lymphoma and Myeloma at the University of Texas, MD Anderson Cancer Center. He received the Harold May Endowed Fellowship Award for his hard work and unique contribution to experimental therapeutic in B-cell malignancies. He currently has an active NH funding Curious Accelerator Award and Young Investigator Award, and currently mentored 3 graduate students, 2 postdoctoral fellows, and 2 undergraduates. He is known for his novel finding of FS assistant antisense INC RNA for the FS isoform regulation and its role in immense evasion. His current research program focuses on understanding epigenetic modification role in mantle cell lymphoma and identifying novel therapeutic targets. Though through his research, he has identified several promising compounds that have been shown efficacy in preclinical models, translating these findings into clinical trials. He has collaborated actively with researchers in several other disciplines and published various articles in Leukemia, Blood Advanced Journal of Hematology and Oncology. He has served on roughly 11 conference and workshop program committee, NIH, SAS, Blood Cancer, UK, and SITC study sections reviewer. His work with clinical peers has led to the initiation of investigator-led clinical trials for MCL. Before starting the talk, I may request Professor A.K. Tyagi, Dean HBNI, to kindly say a few words to our esteemed speaker or audience.
So let me also welcome Dr. Lalit Sehgal for kindly joining us despite the time difference of nearly 12 hours. Okay, he's in India. Okay. So I realize that you are in India, but still my thanks does not get diluted at all. You have spared your time from your busy schedule to be with us online. We look forward to hear you because this particular series has been initiated. As you know, it is the third one in this series. The main purpose is to motivate our current students that a bright future is awaiting for you. Who can be better than Dr. Sehgal for this purpose? Let me once again welcome Dr. Sehgal and over to him.
Dr. Sehgal, please.
Yeah, thank you for the kind introduction, and I'm delighted to be here to talk about my experiences from how I was at the graduate school back here in Mumbai, Tata Memorial Center, ACTREC, how I finished my PhD, and what helped me navigate through this academic journey to become an independent faculty. As Dr. Tyagi and Dipanvita has mentioned, that this series is mainly an informational series where we would like to give our own experiences as in how we went through the academic journey and what can help you better. And so what I'm going to do today is I'm going to give you a brief introduction of what I did, and we're going to look at a case study that's going to give you an interesting overview and an outlook on how to choose an academic journey, what are the current stats for the field in the academic journey so that you can make an informed decision. In the end, I will give you my take on what it needs to be successful to become an independent faculty on your journey. So a little bit about me is, if you can see my slide, I did my Bachelor's of Science in Zoology honors from Delhi University. Then I went to finish my Master's of Science in Molecular and Human Genetics from Jivaji University, Gwalior. I competed into the UGC JRF and net examination, clarified those, got admission in the Tata Memorial Central Electric as a PhD student, which was affiliated with HBNI. And under the mentorship of Saurabh, I finished my PhD. Right after I finished my graduate school, even before finishing, I think a year prior, I was already accepted into a postdoc fellowship program at University of Texas MD Anderson Cancer Center because I wanted to do cancer, and I'll come back to it again, why I did that and what led to choosing that particular field. After finishing the postdoc fellowship of nearly 4.5 years, I went ahead to join as an independent assistant professor on a tenure track faculty. Currently, I am being tenured as an associate professor, so the decision and the final things will come probably later this summer. So things are moving good as far as the academic journey, but how it led, let's go ahead and have a look. So this is a little bit background on my PhD. So my mentor was Saurabh Dalal, you can call it CRI-TMC. And so during my PhD, we started working on these 43 proteins. And the question that we were asking at that time, what are the role of these proteins in cellular proliferation and survival? In order to do that, we wanted to do is the loss of function studies in vivo. So I created this novel technique of creating transgenic mice by exploiting the spermatogonial stem cells. This is a novel technique that led us to 2 patents, multiple publication, and was a part of the mouse genetics book. And it gave me a lot of exposure, not only nationally, but internationally. Once we established a novel method of creating transgenic mouse, we went ahead and actually asked the questions of knockouts of particular genes. And one of the phenotype that was very interesting at that time when I was a graduate student was that loss of our protein was giving a splenomegaly and similar to what you would observe in hematological malignancies such as lymphomas and leukemia. So I got pretty much interested in understanding what is the role of cell cycle regulatory proteins in regulating lymphoma. So having the background of cell cycle regulation at Saurabh, then at Saurabh's lab, I wanted to now apply into a disease which is closely related to the cell cycle regulatory protein and its malignancies. So then, while I was a graduate student, I think around in 30 years or so, I went in to give presentations in the mouse genetic conferences in US where I came across with various different peoples. I went in to give the informal interviews while I was a third-year student, and at the fourth-year student, I was able to actually got multiple offers for as a postdoc fellow, um, and I chose University of Texas MD Anderson Cancer Center, lymphoma, specifically because I was interested in hematological malignancies. A little bit about my journey at the University of Texas MD Anderson Cancer Center. MD Anderson Cancer Center is #1 cancer center in the world for cancer hospital. does a lot of preclinical and clinical trial studies and is at the forefront of both basics, translational, and novel discoveries. Last 2 years, Nobel Prize winner for the discovery of CTLA and PDL41 also went to MD Anderson, Jim Allison, and we worked on the same floor with Jim Allison, and it was a great pleasure to share halls with the Nobel laureate. So, when I was at the postdoctoral training, um, I focused on immune evasion, and one of the interesting immune evasion mechanisms is by regulation of fast receptors in B-cell lymphoma. So during my postdoc, I was the first one to characterize how the fast receptor splicing is actually regulated in B-cell lymphoma, and we were able to identify a long non-coding RNA that actually regulates it. Further researching deeper into it, we were able to identify that this regulation is deeply intertwined with epigenetic regulation, and we went ahead to identify various targeting pro-survival pathways in B-cell lymphoma. And I published numerous articles, both first authors and corresponding authors as a postdoc student, in my postdoc fellowship. This actually led me to present my work at various conferences in US and outside US and different forums, was able to interact with the key opinion leaders in the field of lymphoma in United States and other, and actually led to me being identified by universities as a potential independent faculty candidate. With that said, in 2018, I started as an independent faculty and had my lab, where I then focused on to understand the mechanisms of the bone marrow involvement and how it regulates the malignant cells and the mechanisms of the signaling pathways that is important for the regulation of tumorigenesis. In particular, we followed this hypothetic model where we have a hypothesis where we believe that the tumor cells creating the initiating cells have a complex, more than two-way communication happening in the bone marrow along with the stromas. So right now, our lab is focusing on understanding various interplays between the bone marrow stromas and the stromal stimulation pathways and the tumor stromal pathways. I will just give you a snippet of how my lab started. So these are various different students in my lab. A little bit have changed since this last picture was taken. My first graduate student, Anuvrad Sarkar, was also from India. He just defended his thesis, and now actually he has gotten as a senior scientist lead in mantle cell lymphoma at AstraZeneca. I have another one, Shayan Mukherjee, who is a PSTP program member. So he's physician scientist. He finished his PhD in US and MD at Ohio State University and worked with me on 3D trafficking models of bone marrow. So we do a lot of ex vivo culture, 3D modeling, organoid systems. Another postdoc, Satish, who came to my lab from ACTREC, is now on track for an independent faculty position as a research scientist. And I have another 3 graduate students, 2 undergrads right now. So the team is expanding, and we are very excited to see how my lab pupils grow. So before I actually go and talk to you about the journey of PhD to an independent faculty, I think it would be very interesting if we look at an interesting article that was published in Nature Biotech in 2018. The reason I brought this article up is because it's going to help us and everyone to understand what is the postdoctoral employment trends and what is the taxonomy for the career outcomes in United States. So this script that I've written is actually taken as is from the first paragraph of the article. And the reason I put it there is because it actually tells us that as a postdoctoral scholar, right after your PhD, you're considered a highly skilled scientist, okay, that have been trained to enter into academic tenure track positions. Now, the caveat is the number of these tenure track positions remains largely flat, while the number of the postdoc fellows or people who are graduating PhD is increasing, meaning that the majority of the scientists will have to obtain other type of careers. Now, the question is, what are the other type of careers that one has to think about? And how can one make an informed decision about which way to go? So, in order to do that, as a scholar, as a graduate student, or as a postdoc, you need to understand the institutional knowledge. Uh, which institution, what is their turnaround, what is their success rate going into one field versus the other, what is good for the success of my academic journey. So when you look at the visualization of the alumni migration in United States, and then you pair them by the country of origin to the country of job location, you can see this beautiful circle plot that actually tells you that people coming from various different countries, um, over here, you could see, are very thin going to US, whereas people from US in the academic is more. So it displays that the countries of origin alongside the countries of job location. And if you look at the arrow pointing towards the job location, you could see that nearly 2/3 of all the alumni remain in the US after training. So that means if 100 postdocs from India goes to US for training and further academic program, 75 of those would stay in US. So does that mean those 75 people who went into United States are actually in tenure track on an independent faculty position? Uh, I'm not sure, and we'll have to look at the data right now. But I will tell you the tenure track position is only 3% of the total academic pool that goes in. So that means out of those 75 people who stay in academic, only 3% of those, that means 1 out of 100 or 2 out of 100 would eventually be in the tenure track. So it's a tough road. However, we really need to look at the data to understand how we can increase our chances. So let's look at the summary of the career outcomes within each tier of the taxonomy. If you actually categorize the job sector, the people coming after PhD into US makes 48% in the academic sector, and the other sectors are not non-academic, such as profit companies, pharmaceuticals, government agencies, nonprofit, independent, and self-employed. And partly the reason for academic institution 50% increase in case of the international students could be visa related because they cannot pursue the other opportunities due to the lack of the uh, visa supports and other things. But when you actually break down this pie chart by job type, as you see in the right top panel, you can see the professional staff and the tenure track staff of the management staff are the non-tenure track faculty. The tenure track faculty makes the 30% of the academic pool. Now, what is the difference between the tenure track faculty and the non-tenure track faculty? The both of them are PhD based jobs. A tenure track faculty is the one who leads the program, and the non-tenure track faculty is the one who assists a tenure track faculty. Similarly, the professional staffs could be the one who are scientific assistants, research support staff, and the management would be the PhDs who eventually go ahead and do their MBA and then go into the research administration side of the things. Now, when you actually look at the job specifics, you can find out that most of the academic tenure track faculties or the academic jobs are primarily the basic research, which is 30%, And the second one category is the applied research called as translational at 23%, and the clinical research people who are MD and perform research on the clinical trials is 7%. So based on all these various data as inputs, one can see that half of all the alumni actually enters the academic sector, while the remainder of all the population or the pool largely enters the profit or the government sector. So, which is very interesting that 50% of the alumni in their training at postdoc will end up in the academic. So, that's a good thing. Now, when you actually look very closely, detailed employment trends for the postdoctoral fellows and identify that, okay, if we take those 50% of academic population over here on the left, and then ask where actually they go, and you follow our map, you could see that the tenure track faculty, the basic research is only 29%. So it is illustrated by the red to the light green transition, and 29% of the 50% pool who went into the academic journey actually gets into the tenure track position. Others choose to go into the scientific writing, communication, applied research, clinical trials, regulatory affairs, science administration, where you take care of the grants management, research administration, clinical research, tech supports like an assistance, additional postdocs, or you continue doing your other startup work. So, why is that variation among the US and the international scholars? So, in academics, if you actually take the total pool, the international one that is coming from either India, China, or Japan, Korea, and the people who are US based, and then you ask this question, what happens to the job sector, which is predominantly occupied by which alumni from international or US, you can actually see on the left-hand side at the bar plot that 61% of academic institution, you have international students, whereas 39 or 37% of US actually retained or stay in the academic settings. If you look at the for-profit company, which is pharmaceutical companies, the international students are far less than the US nationals. Similarly, in the government agencies, also the US national, nonprofit, and others fare better. When you actually divide them based on the job titles, which would be as a trainee, such as postdoctoral trainee or others, graduate students, undergraduate trainees, you see again international candidates are higher. In the tenure track faculty positions in US, 39.9% of the faculty is international, coming from various different countries, whereas the people of US origin is only 21%. Similarly, if you look at the support staff or the professional staff, the US people are higher. And when you say the professional staff or the support staff is like research assistants, research associates, you have your research lab managers, and others. Non-tenure track faculties are those faculties which have the title, such as instructors, research scientists. They make fairly equal percentage. People who went into the research administration by becoming the coordinators for the research programs at the universities and other areas in the management, the US people are 16% as compared to the 10% of the international candidate. So, in a nutshell, more international scholars than the US scholars actually enter into the academic sectors, while more US scholars enter into the for profit and the government sectors. And nearly twice as many international schools scholars enter into the tenure track faculty position and trainee positions as compared with the US scholars. So, so, so if you look and if you're doing the job type, primarily the US scholars are conducting applied research uh, or basically translational research as compared to the international fellows who are primarily doing basic research. A very interesting stats to look at, and because we'll come back to it in a while. Now, having said that, the international scholars more going into the academic sector, is there a distinction or differences between the international scholars in the academic positions between the countries? So that's an important question to ask, right? Now, we're going to go through these bubble plots, and I'm going to go with the left one first and the right one first, and then we're going to analyze what it means. So if you actually look at the training positions for United States going into the tenure track faculty, it's only 21%, and the rest goes into the professional staff, non-tenure, and the management. Now, since we're talking about HBNI, and we'll only focus on the US versus India, and if you actually look at over here in India, the trainee population and the undecided people make the larger pool, and only 20% of the postdocs that goes into US actually go into the tenure track faculty. And a lot of the others occupy all the other things. Now, the question is, if we consider this as a 100 pool, then 100% of the postdoc fellows that go into US, only 20% of those get into the tenure track faculty. Okay, now the question is, how much time do you spend in each stages of this career to either land your tenure track faculty position over here or the other positions over here? Now, if you look at this bubble plot that tells you the mean training time, you could see that in India, as an Indian, you spend over 40 months, okay, between 30 to 40 months. That means if you land up a faculty position between 36 to 50 months, the success rate of having a tenure track faculty is greater. But if actually you move your training higher up in time, you do not end up in this bubble plot. And this is a very important consideration for everyone to think. The ideal time for training is 36 to 48 months before you can actually make a switch to faculty position. You look at these bubble plots and you can see that the people or the alumni from South Korea and Japan have a higher percentage entering into tenure track. So what is those countries doing differently than what we are not? I think those are the important questions that HBNI placements and other places need to think. One of the interesting things that I can understand is the opportunities available for these alumni from different countries to come establish a relationship with the laboratories while they are doing graduate studies, having programs where they can create an exchange student, have them finish half part of their PhD in various different universities, get the exposure, increase their productivity is the key in case of South Koreans and Japanese and the Chinese communities. Their universities fund their stay in United States as a graduate students. And I believe that is one factor of many that helps them prepare for their academic journey. Now, if you actually look, not only that, top 5 countries based on number of alumni individuals from Japan and India entering into the professional staff is the longest, which is concerning because that means having been trained in India, you are in the professional services, but not in the top tier academic tenure track faculty. There could be many several reasons one can think of why this happens, But important thing to understand is the focus and the direction that you had to take to achieve or to be in that pool of 21%. Or if we navigate our channels better, we can increase that 21% to 56% with time. Having said that, and I really encourage you all to go ahead and read this beautiful paper, and I'll be very happy to send my slides as a PDF to Dipanvita, and you guys can share that and learn a little bit about the stats and whatnot. Important question next is, what percentage of alumni that enter into tenure track position based on their doctoral degree and how they fared better? Okay, so we know that 21% of the tenure track faculty is there, but if you take these 21% and break down based on which discipline is the best in getting tenure, you have to look at so that you can identify which area you wanted to plan. Okay, so if you look at this forest plot, you could see that 58% success for biostatisticians and computational biologists, followed by epidemiologists, pathology, chemistry, neuroscience, medicine. Okay, and then all the basic biologies such as biochemistry, biophysics, cell biology, pharmacology, and others are around 20 to 30%. So the two fields that has the highest percentage of alumni entering into tenure track faculty is computational biology and biostatistics, which is not surprising given the fact that we have a big data science coming now with artificial intelligence and moving in further the developmental stages on the clinical and translational research where we utilize the data on the computational side. It's very important. So a prospective analysis has been done by US Department of Labor recently, and they predicted between 2016 and 2026, the job sectors for tenure track faculty that's going to see a job growth is actually going to be for biostatisticians and computational biologists by 33%. So by 33% more, that 58% probably would be around 70%. So that means the people who will get tenured by 2026 or enter into tenure track faculty by 2026, 2030 will be higher in the category of biostatisticians and computational biology. You ask me why do I bother, or why am I talking about all these stats? I'm just trying to give you a sense of which direction one can think of going to increase your chances of getting into these positions based on how you are conducting your doctoral degree or how you can apply later on to it. Nonetheless, this paper that was published in Nature Biotech is really interesting, and I encourage you all to read that. So this is an interesting comics series by PhD Comics. And we all joke about it with my grad student is, as an advisor, we tell you that, hey, a graduate student, what do you want to be? And a grad student is going to tell, oh, I want to be a professor, or I want to be an academic person at a major research university after I graduate. And as a graduate student, the real plan is that he's always looking for career alternatives. And the secret plan is, in the end, he just wants to do something to have a living by playing baker, rock star, and writer. And the reason this is funny is because during the academic journey, you will get ups and downs, and you're going to question yourself, whether I can actually achieve my goal or not. But, if your plan is set, if you are going with the right strategy, you do not need to look for career alternatives. However, you can enjoy being a baker, rock star, and writer in your free time. So let's go ahead and understand, what do you need to become an independent researcher? So in my opinion, I've got these bullet points based on what I think could be important for you guys to consider while you're a PhD student. The important thing is to select your mentor in a PhD position that helps you foster the independence, that helps you embrace your failure, that helps you plan your experiments, that helps you to take your directions in your research. You need to actually understand and set milestones. So you wanted to be with a mentor who wanted to create milestone for graduate students, because ultimately the goal as a graduate student or a PhD student for you is to become self-reliant. And the only way to do that is to embrace your losses. That means the more you fail, the more successful you become. So if your mentors are capable of seeing your losses, that is the mentor that's going to help you become independent. So how are you going to keep in line of your research objectives? And I know that HBNI is a great program because I've done PhD with them. They have an yearly research objective meetings called doctoral committee. You've got beautiful internals and externals. They review and give your valuable suggestions. I think that is very important. But what else is important is if you actually have a weekly research objectives laid out between you and your mentor, between you and your peers, between a club of biochemistry, genetics within your research institutions. Talk about your research objectives, talk about your failures. The important thing in science is what not to do. That can only come if we understand what are our losses, what are our failures. Choosing the research methodology. Important thing to consider is not doing experiments, but doing the experiments in a right way. You take 4 to 5 days to understand what you need to do it, but when you do it in a way that it's going into your publications. So clean objectives, troubleshooting your failed experiments, proactive communication with your supervisors, mentors, discussions is very important. Two-way communication is the best way to keep the traffic moving, right? If there is no two-way communication, you cannot reach from one side of the road to the other side. Hence, you have to have a proactive communication with your supervisors, with your mentors, with your external committee members, internal committee members. Seek out for your help, okay? Important thing that you need to uh, work on as an independent researcher during your graduate students is writing. You need to develop proposals. You need to start writing. You need to work on creating a proposal. Of course, as a PhD student, when you're working in a research lab with your mentor, you're of course working on an idea that your mentor is working on, but you should also foster about creating a proposal of your own, okay? And you wanted to start writing, as in you're writing for a grant, okay? Now, you need to also start working on your CV. You need to be able to get fellowships. You need to be able to find and secure additional postdoc fellowships, whether it's the Fulbright Scholarship, whether it's the DBD Welcome Fellowship, whether it's Indo-US Fellowship. And it starts as soon as you become a PhD student. If you wait for 3 years, you'll not be able to get these funding secured, okay? Because you need to start before you begin, okay? That's the key. In the academic journey, you start before you begin. Your focus has to be super clear. Okay, so let's look at the challenges that you would face as a postdoctoral researcher in securing funding. And this is one of the bottleneck in transition to independence. You really need to secure your own research funding, or you need to demonstrate an excellence in a program that ensures that you are capable of getting funding. And that is what's going to get you in a tenure track position. This can only be demonstrated if you have a history of demonstrating funding right from either your high school, master's, graduate programs, getting funding from various positions, from various institutions, increasing your CVs, increasing your experiences, creating your CV strong is what will get you the tenure track position. Learning from your colleagues or collaborator experiences, having an open dialogue, having understanding of your alumni, people who have done that successfully, what they did, what they did not, and what are the differences in various different institutions, various different fields. Talk to people, build networks. I'm not talking about networks internally in HBNI, ACTREC, this, that. Networks internal, external, not only national but international. More you go to the conferences, more exposure you get, more you get known, more you present, more you talk about your research. That's going to help you refining the research ideas. It's going to help you identify the host institution. It's going to help you identify a mentor. Okay, you should start looking at how you can understand how to write a grant and how to establish your own lab. The seed to establish your own lab starts when you start your PhD. If that's not happened yet, you have to start now. You have to work very hard. Okay. So now, having said that, as an independent faculty, uh, what are our responsibilities of running their lab? It's different how we run labs in India versus over here. And US, you are responsible to pay all the employees. I'm not sure how that is in India now, but you pay for all of the staff. So that means you need to bring enough funding to pay yourself, your salary, and the salary of all the people in the lab. So, and then you need to actually find people who will be part of your research team that brings the diverse skill set to your team. You need to create an interpersonal and leadership skills. Uh, and this can only be possible if that's inculcated during your PhD training. I'm going to give you an example of an interesting um, thing that we started, or our seniors started back at ACTREC. It's called Graduate Students Meeting. That was a perfect example of how to develop an interpersonal and a leadership skill while you were at a graduate school. And I was very happy that when I did that for 2 or 3 years consecutively, I was able to interact with the leading research scientists in India and outside, inviting them, talking with them. Not only that, inviting the students from all across the national country, talking to them about their research. What it does for me was it gave me an exposure. Okay. So people were able to see me as not only a researcher, but also a person who has an interpersonal ability and able leadership qualities. So not only that, you have to, of course, when you lead a lab, you'll be able to do a lot of budgeting and financial management. You have to make sure everyone is getting paid on time. You have enough dollars or funding to have all the research supplies and other important thing to do is mentorship. Okay. If you open up your lab, you have to be an able mentor and let them grow, let them give the opportunity to network, create a foster an environment where they can be an entrepreneur. That means is able to actually ask their own questions. Okay. So those are the important qualities I think you would need as an independent researcher. Now, if you by now have understood a little bit about the statistics coming into the US as a PhD after PhD as a postdoc into the academics, you probably now know is that you should have started right now um, if you are interested in the academic journey. Now, these are some questions that you could ask yourself that is this academic journey to be an independent researcher is suitable for me or not. So the first question you want to ask yourself is, are you passionate, innovative, and able to ask the right questions? Is your research idea worth pursuing, and can it attract funding? Are you not comfortable shifting labs because of the funding issues? Do you feel fine not relying on a supervisor or institute to secure your salary, which is a big part in US, okay? Are you tenacious, motivated, and a go-getter? Do you have the vision of patience and tenacity? If the answers that you're going to ask yourself is yes for most of these questions, then welcome aboard. Okay, you are a right candidate to move into an academic journey towards independent research. However, if it's not now, well, if it's not yes, you you have really good options in the academic journey, as I discussed earlier, and still enjoy really good academic or research career. Now, in the end, what I believe is what you need. Okay. And these are the 8 things that I think you need to focus on. This is an interesting quotation by Marie Forleo. The key to success is to start before you are ready. Okay. I missed a Y. So that means if you're not ready, okay, you cannot start. But you have to start today before you even begin your journey in the academics. The way to get into the academic uh, career is to accentuate your achievements, increase your exposure, build collaborations, have interactions, publish quality journals, publications, have your focus straight, and the last and the most important thing is write, 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 write. More you write, more you write, everything you have to write. Grant proposals, papers, reviews. Writing is the key to become an independent faculty. And that's the period. In the end, this is an interesting PhD comics that we often joke about as a undergrad. I'm going to research whatever I want. When you're doing a grad school, it changes to I'm going to research whatever my professor wants. When I become an assistant professor, I'm going to research whatever my tenure committee wants. When you get tenured, I'm going to research what my grant committee wants. And when you become an emeritus professor, I'm going to research whatever I can, but by the time you're going to do research in peace, okay, not rest in peace. But with that, my talk comes to an end. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll be happy to take questions, have a discussion dialogue, or however you would like to discuss. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sehgal, for a very informative talk. I'm sure the students will be very much benefited. I will now ask all the students here to first ask questions and then we can go to online. So, Kitish, any question?
I mean, having questions after this wonderful presentation will be a sin for me. We have to think much more on this, but it was beautifully presented, and the statistics, and I mean, it was cherry on top when I saw the PhD comics because I too have seen the movies also from the same people. So thank you very much, sir, for this wonderful presentation. I think everybody would be benefited, I mean, 100-folds after this talk. I mean, before 1 hour and after this moment. So thank you, sir.
Thank you. And any question from, what's your name? Harsha. Okay. You are Harsha. So, Harsha, you ask him. So, Panda, you want to ask?
Professor Sehgal, nice talk. I
Thank
think
you.
our students will be benefited from your presentation. I just wanted to ask you this, most of these postdocs going to US, they are ultimately settling towards academic side. Am I right?
Most of them, yes.
Yeah. So is there any specific reason for that, that our postdocs, they cannot compete in the government job, or government job is restricted. That is the reason?
I think the government jobs, as it's going to be in India or any federal countries would be, is restricted to the citizens. Unfortunately or fortunately, the tenure track positions are also considered uh, given to the people who are either the permanent residents or the citizens. I think so. One of the major caveat why the Indians in United States is not able to convert into academic is the restriction of the uh, visas, and I think the policymaker on the in the Indian sides with the government might be able to work something better on their side, which can eventually help these students not to have into uh, visa situations or being restricted, at least for the academic side, because you could have brilliant people, but they might not get chances. For example, I can tell you, an instance where there is a beautiful research done by someone and a deserving candidate, but because of the visa restriction, he actually is over 10 years since the last PhD degree conferred. And what it does is that once you are over 10 years of your PhD with NIH funding agencies and others, you lose the early stage investigator status. And when you actually lose that status, that means you're now competing for grants with people who are established. So then the competition becomes much more stiffer. To get into the independent position early on is restricted. So I think there is definitely one of those issues. The second issue is I do believe, people who are doing graduate studies in India need to have the exposures in the United States labs, learn and have collaborative environment. I think that could be initiated during their third year of PhD and things like that. So I think those things, something could be inculcated right at early stage during the PhDs as well.
Okay. Oh, okay. Thank you very much. So visa is the one of the reason, maybe, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
there could
Thank
be
you, sir.
multiple reasons. This is probably one of those. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your response. Thank you.
Sure.
Any question for Professor Rachna?
Thank you, Dr. Sehgal, for a very informative lecture. As we all know, the path to success is not straight. There are lots of turbulences in between. So how do you deal with the stress that might have come in between your success story?
Well, stress is always there. Okay, so there is this interesting cartoon that a person is climbing up atop of the hill, and and you're almost there, right? But you still feel that you're gonna give up. But the point is, you fail to realize that you've already climbed all the way to the top. It's just a little more, steps. So frustrations and other things that happens in any discipline, and I think it's important for every one of us to really understand that what is our focus, what is our goal, and can we continue? And this could only be done if you have a really good support system. So like this, HBNI placement cell. This is a really good support system for people who can come back, ask for help for the alumni. If you're stuck, you go back, look into your alumni pool and see who is there who can give me a guidance, who can help me. And so you can, again, the failure of, in my understanding, the biggest success a man can have is the failures. If a person does not have a failure, you will not be able to know what not to do. So the failures is the biggest success.
Thank you. And we are planning to have a one-to-one interaction meeting with the alumni. So that may help me, the students to get more options and get more what are the different scenarios in USA and other places. So that will help. So you may start that also. And you will have some Google form and that students can that form and they can give them options that this with those alumni they want to interact. You are ready to help in that, Dr. Sehgal?
Yeah, so I think what we can do is like Dipanvita, you mentioned there could be possibilities. There are students who would like to have one-on-one sessions or a little more discussion. I think I'm going to go back to US the next week. I've got a pretty packed day today and tomorrow. But what we could do is if there are candidates from the HBNI alumni or other places um, interested, and we can schedule some 30-minute Zoom calls with that with me. So that should be done, not an issue.
Yeah, that will be help. So there is there is some question from YouTube. So
Okay.
you can.
Sir, questions are in chat box.
Okay, so
You can
I
read those
think
questions.
so. Is this the one? Okay, so I see that Archita Rai said, currently in the
Hi.
last leg of my PhD, what is your opinion on two topics? One, industrial postdoc uh, experience in the US, and the success and the feasibility of re-entry programs in India. Okay, so all right, so this is good question, Arshida. Since you're in the last leg of your PhD, good luck finishing a PhD, moving into postdocs. Industrial postdocs and the academic postdocs in the US is a great idea. However, I do believe in my limited understanding that the industrial postdocs, you are limited by securing the H-1B funding or a visa. So if you would have done PhD graduate schools in United States, getting an industrial postdoc is easier because you have 3 years of OTP program that helps the pharmaceutical companies secure H-1B visa for you. However, if you're coming from India right after PhD, uh, the areas who can get you the industrial postdocs is very limited in my understanding. And I'm no, uh, immigration expert or anything, but based on the experience of me and my friends, I think that's what I gathered. But I think either one, industrial postdoc or the academic postdoc, is definitely a great idea. I'm not sure if these are limited by the citizenships or the visa restrictions. And the second question that you asked, Rishita, is the success and the feasibility of the reentry programs in India. I can tell you it's great. One of my postdoc, Neeraj Chan, he received the Ramalinga Swami and actually moved back. He's now assistant professor at CDRI. So I know that these programs exist. Back in the days, there was this program where it's called National Science Meet, NSM. It happens in Chicago or so, or NRSM or something like that, where all the Indian researchers come um, and you can apply and you talk about your postdoc experiences. And I think there are options to get recruited to the Indian research institutions, which is great. Yeah. So reentry programs are definitely uh, really great for India. And I think they're putting a lot of emphasis on bringing the research back, the highly trained postdoc fellows back to India, and you can have your own lab there. And I think that's great. Sumiran saying, can students from India apply for project jobs in lab present in US? I think there are jobs and postdoc positions advertised a lot. I would rather not apply to the jobs if that's not something you would like to carry out down the line. You probably want to start looking at during your third year, fourth year, which area you're going to go, start creating or foster a collaboration or an relationship with the advisor, keep an eye on how their funding is going. Do they have availabilities in a year or so? Create those relationships, because I think if you're more focused, asking the right question, joining a right team and a right mentor, you're going to be much more successful in your postdoc rather than applying to a job posting. One of the things that you really need to look into choosing the right mentor is to see where their mentees are. What kind of publication there is, what kind of culture there in their lab is. You go and talk to their students. That's more important to understand whether they give them a freedom or not. What type of research environment is in the lab. So I think those are really important questions. I think the success of lab is actually defined by the mentees that get out, and the best way to know a research lab is talk to their researchers or grad students or postdocs before you actually even consider someone. So definitely talk to the people who work for their labs and other places. Any other questions?
Is there any question in YouTube? No. Huh? No, nothing. Not in chat box. Okay. So, anybody in online want to ask any question? Webex? No. Okay. If not there, then thank you very much, Dr. Sehgal, for your very, very good, very, very nice talk and very, very, very informative. I think those who have not also joined, they will afterwards they will go through this your talk in YouTube and they will get benefited. I definitely can see that when that is going on because people see afterwards. In BRC, that is the problem because people cannot join in Webex and so they generally see in the YouTube afterwards. So I hope that people will get any benefited, students will get benefited. So, so thank you very much, and we hope to have more interaction with you and with the students. We are planning to have one alumni job fair that let us see in this year only. So if that happens, then maybe your input will be very much useful. So thank you very much, and so have a nice day. Thank you.
Thank you.